Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever. I'm Neil Cobb. I'm with the Biodiversity Outreach Network, and I'm coordinator for the iDigBees program. The focus of which is to document the biogeography of the 20,000 plus species of bees in the world so that we can better understand their evolutionary ecology and inform conservation efforts. And this is a screenshot of our website. This is the first informal webinar hosted by iDigBees in celebration of global bee biodiversity. And the title of the talk is The Taxonomy and Biogeography of Native Bees of Mexico by Gerardo Quintos Andrade from the University of Veracruz. I first noticed Gerardo's interest in bees through his Twitter blog, where he labels himself as the bee guy. And if you peruse his series of tweets, you'll understand he is very passionate about bees and Mexico, which is why I thought he would present a great webinar. Minkley and Frankie in 2021, and Bob, I think I saw you're actually attending this webinar, recently documented the highest diversity of bees near the border of Mexico and US. Mexico is the most biodiverse part of North America, and I'd argue along with the Arctic, Mexico is probably the most vulnerable part of North America to global change impacts. And so we have to increase efforts to document and conserve Mexican biodiversity. And Gerardo, I believe, is a model for someone that is doing just that. Gerardo wanted to present this seminar in English. We will do another recording of the webinar in Spanish probably tomorrow, and we'll make both recordings available. He can read English very well, but it's hard for him to understand English. So it would be preferable to write any questions or comments in the chat. But Nichelle Meneses, who's also a co-host here, is helping me. She's fully bilingual, so she can help out just in case there is a language problem. And without further ado, we will switch to Gerardo's presentation, and I'll let him share his screen. So please mute yourself, and this webinar is being recorded. Take it away, Gerardo.
Okay, thanks, Neil. Well, can you see the screen?
Yep.
Okay. Good morning, afternoon, night, everyone. My name is Gerardo Quintos Andrade. I am a biology student at Universidad Veracruzana in Xalapa, Veracruz, in Mexico. My topic or my presentation today is taxonomy and biogeography of the native bees of Mexico. And now, first, we need to know what's the importance. Wait, I will put a laser. Yeah. First, we need to know what's the importance of Mexico into the biodiversity. Mexico, in the biogeographical sense, is the bridge between the Nearctic and Neotropical regions. That means, well, wait, I have some problems in my screen. Can you see my camera? Yeah. Well.
Yes.
Yes, sorry. Yes, Mexico is a bridge between the Nearctic and Neotropical regions in the Americas. And that means into the past of the time, creation of several kinds of biodiversity, of several kinds of biological ecosystems where some organisms lives. And in our country, we have more than 10 terrestrial ecosystems. said Conavio 2021. And well, as we can see, there's the bridge between the Nearctic and Neotropical regions, and another one, that's the Mesoamerican region that was created by the mix of these two regions, creating a biological organisms that we can only see into this part of the world. Into this part, the Mesoamerican region, we can see that there's more of the endemical species from Mexico. And as we can see into this map, we can see several kind of species from Mexico that we can see there's more important, and we can see the bridge between these two regions. And that means great biodiversity in our country. For example, Mexico is the seventh country with more biodiversity in the world, followed by Brazil, Peru, United States, I don't remember, Ecuador, I guess. And well, that's the principal importance of Mexico into the biodiversity. Then the bees in the world, as we know, bees are specialized wasp with the habit of eat nectar, and the larvae are fed by pollen. And actually we know more than 20,000 species, and their importance is that they pollinate, they contribute into the pollination of more than the 70% of the world food production. For example, into the 99, we used to have more than 145 billions of dollars into the world of the alfalfa production in the US. And as we can see, for example, this food is principally pollinated by bees. And in the case of the alfalfa, this plant was pollinated by Megachile rotundata, an important bee species into the food production. And in our country, we know that the Mexican bees are important into the pollination of the native crops. For example, in Mexico, in our culture, we use it to cultivate several foods that actually is well extended around the world. For example, the tomatoes, the chili peppers, vanilla, and for example, this food is pollinated by native bees. For example, the tomatoes and the chili peppers are pollinated by bumblebees, by sweet bees, and the vanilla by orchid bees. And in the other part of the cultural importance is the breeding of stingless bees. This kind of bees without sting that we can use in our country for the honey production, native honey production or virgin honey production. This kind of bees is a Meliponidae tribe, and in the Mayan culture, this honey was important into their culture. And for example, there's two bee species that we can find in Mexico, and is well used for this honey production, Melipona bechi and Scaptotrigona pectoralis. Also, into the Mayan culture, we have a bigot called Amukenkaf. This is a Mayan bigot, and he's important into the their cosmogony. This good is important into the honey quality, and he was involucrated into the creation of the world. In our country, the Mexican chili pepper is Mexico is the first country into the production of chili peppers, making a production of more than 1,048 millions of dollars in 2018. And well, in our country, we have several rich genera. This top 10 was made for me using the Asher and Pickle information into the database. And as we can see, the genus Perdita is the most richness genus in our country, in Mexico. We have 200, what? No. We have 214 species on Mexico, followed by Megachile, Andrena, Pseudopanurgus, Lacioglosum, Coletes, Centris, Melisodes, and Protandrena. And these genus are important because their origin is made by the Nearctic region. That means that they come from the north, excepting by Centris, that is a tropical genus that comes from South America. And this genus was extended since the south to the north, and that means a difference into the bee biodiversity. And well, as we can see here into this graphic, principal everything except Centris is the principal most richest genus from Mexico, and this one is from the Neotropic origin. In Mexico, we have only 587 endemic species, as we can see into this graphic. The family with more endemic species is the Andrenid family. As we can see, for example, Perdita, Andrena, Pseudopanurgus, and Protandrena is from the Andrenid family. And as we can see, this is a family with more endemic species, followed by Apidae and Alictide and Megachilidae. The only family with only one endemic species is a Melitid with only one species. And this percent of endemic species is a 34% of the novel species from our country, from Mexico. And we have only two endemic genus, that is Astegantidium and Paragapostemon. This genus has 3 species, and Paragapostemon is only by 1 species. That means it's monotypic. That's Paragapostemon celestinus. But well, how many bee species are in Mexico? In Mexico, we have six families, as we can see into this graphic. And we have 144 genus around this country. And real number of how many bee species are in Mexico is on discussion. For example, I have this number, 1,910 species in 2020. That's what's said by Ricardo Ayala in a talk. But into the Asher and Pickering database, I have a number of 1,878 species. And these richness, these species are dominant into the north of the country, into the deserts and the forests of this region. This part, that's the Nearctic part, as we saw before. And well, as we can see into this map, we can see how many bee species has been recorded around the country by state. For example, the most richness state is Chihuahua, this one part, followed by Sonora, and then follows Veracruz, Nuevo León, and Jalisco. These states has the most richness recorded by bee biodiversity in our country. And as we can see, this is a principle into the north part of Mexico. On the other hand, we have states with less no biodiversity. For example, Campeche, Tabasco, Tlaxcala, Ciudad of Mexico, the capital state, Colima, Aguascalientes, and Querétaro. For example, that means a contrast in how many work we have as Mexican taxonomies, as Mexican, people working with the recording of these bees. And then in the part of the biogeography of the bees of Mexico, well, first, a little part of context. This division, that division is the Mexican province from the province from Mexico, and that that classification of the country was made by Moron in 2017. And this is a classification based by the what? Over positioning, Ashley, como sobreponer, ¿cómo se dice?
Overlaying
of several kind of taxa. I don't know, pines, flowering plants, beetles, mammals, and this kind of taxa was overplayed, and that created this map that follows the classification of several principal taxa. And as we can see, I overlaid that using this map, the bee biodiversity from Mexico. And as we can see, the most, the richest province is the Desierto Chihuahuense, as we can see, as this is the principal region with more bee biodiversity from Mexico. And well, as we can see, the north part or the Nearctic part, followed by this map, is the principal the principal part of Mexico with more biodiversity. Sorry, I feel so nervous because this is my first talk in English. Well,
you're doing great. Just breathe. You're doing great.
Well, thank you, Ashley. And well, as we can see, this is the Nearctic part, and this has greatest biodiversity. Then follows by Mesoamerican part that follows this classification, as we can see into this map. And then follows the Neotropical part. And well, using this map, then we can see this graphic, and we can see this biodiversity is decreasing around way down into the country. For example, into the Nearctic, we can see more than 900 species. And then this biodiversity is totally decreasing around we go down into the country. For example, into the Neotropic, the most richest province is the 11, that is the Tierras Bajas del Pacífico, downlands, Pacific downlands. And this part, that means that this is totally decreasing. But into the Mesoamerican or transitional Mexican zone, we can see that there's where the most endemic species are recorded. Into this part, to this province, is where most endemic species we can find into Mexico. And well, into this graphic, we can see the division by family. This is the Apide, Andrenid, Megachilid. And then this is the total of how many species are recorded by province. Now, into the taxonomy part of the taxonomy work into the Mexican bees, this knowledge of the Mexican bees has been recorded since the Linnaeus times, not by Linnaeus, by another taxonomies. And this biodiversity has been recorded around the years. Into this graphic, we can see that this bee biodiversity, well, this is an historic, Ashley, curva, ¿cómo se dice?
Curve.
¿Cómo?
Curve.
Curve, sorry. Well, into this historical curve, we can see how many bee species have been recorded around the times, around the past of the years, since the Linnaeus times to the ends of the 90 years. And well, as we can see, this curve has not complete. This is has not reached in the asymptote. And well, in this part, we can see how many bee species has been recorded into this in a year. This is a peak into this bee record. And as we can see into this part, this is the principal authors that has been contributed with the knowledge of the Mexican bee species. For example, Crison, Friese, Kukerel, Timberlake, Laberg, and Michener. They are the principal authors that has been contributed with this knowledge. And Principal Cockerell and Timberlake is important because they describe the majority of the perdita species from Mexico. And as we see before, this is the most Richness genus from Mexico. Actually, we had another authors, as Lawrence Packer, Davianega, and Ricardo Ayala, that they are the principal contemporary authors from our times. And we have started since the 80 years, some part of this time. And they are important for this because they has contributed in the modern knowledge of this bee biodiversity. And well, in Mexico, we have some bee specialists. This is a little list about the principal bee taxonomies and systematics for Mexico. And well, the context of this graphic is that I added a little survey into a group where the Mexican researchers are registered. And into this survey, I showed what's your principal interest into the bee knowledge. I showed two options: ecology, conservation, taxonomy, systematics. And as we can see, it's more the interest into the ecology and the conservation of the bees than the taxonomy and systematics. And that means that in Mexico, there's not a big interest into know what's the real bee biodiversity. But we have some principal taxonomies and systematics that has been contributed with this knowledge. For example, the principal taxonomist is Ricardo Ayala that has been described several bee species from Mexico. For example, the last 3 bee species that has been described from Mexico was described by Ricardo Ayala. This is 3 Lactoglossum species, also with Lawrence Packer from the York University in Canada. But well, we are talking about Mexican taxonomies. And well, this is 3 Lactoglossum species, Manatlense, Tacanense, and Colimense. And this is the last bee species that has been described from Mexico. Then follows Ismael Hinojosa. He's an expert in Euglossini species. Carlos Vergara is, he has been described several species of Colletti family. Then follows Liliana Freire, Natalia Flores, Leonela Baez. Leonela is starting into the perdita knowledge from Mexico, but Liliana, Natalia, she works with Serratina genus, and Liliana, she has been described the bee biodiversity from the north, from the Nuevo León state. Then another principal authors is Jorge Mérida, Remy Van Dam, Philippe Sagot. They are the curators of the Ecosur collection, one of the principal bee collection from Mexico. And as we can see into this map, this is a principal insect collection from Mexico. We have some problem with this knowledge of the insect, some problem with the insect knowledge from Mexico. For example, we have some states as Veracruz and Ciudad de Mexico, where we have more than 10 insect collection inside. For example, Ciudad de Mexico has the most number, 31 collections, followed by Veracruz with 14 collections. But in another states like Zacatecas, Nayarit, Oaxaca, and Campeche, there's not a collection into their institutes. And the yellow dots that we can see here is the states where there's a big collection or bee saved inside these collections. The principal bee collections is the Ecosur and the UNAM collection, where UNAM entomological collection and the Ecosur bee collection, where there's the most bee specimens recorded in our country. And as we can see, there's a problem into the UNAM collection. Is a public database, and in the Ecosur we need to order to enter into this database. but well, there's only 7 collections, the only ones that I know, where there's bees inside these collections. And in Mexico, we have 112 insect collections. Well, there's a little problem into the taxonomy and the digitation topics in our country. As we can see into this map that Neil gave me, we can see the bee occurrence or the bee records from between the United States and Mexico. And as we can see, this border effect, where in the United States, there's a big bee records, but when we cross the border from Mexico, these records are totally null. We can see a poor knowledge into this bee recording. And also we have some problems into the knowledge of the biological identities of our bees. For example, the genus Andrena, the genus Agapostemon, Nomada, Coletes, Megachile. They are some genus that we don't have a good treatment, and we don't know what's the taxonomical identities of all the species, and we don't know how many species are in Mexico. This is another map, another phase of this map, where this knowledge are increasing in Lizard Park into the center and part of the south of Mexico, but this is not sufficient as compared with California and Arizona knowledge. This is another map showing the bee records between the Mexican collections, US collections, and the iNaturalist observations. As we can see, we have this number of records showing this kind of taxa, but not everything is well identified, or only there's into the genus, family level, but to a species level, we don't know how many bee species are into these dots. This is another map showing how many projects has been recorded in bee collections. As we can see, they can overlap. The red dots are this kind of dots. And the principal project that contributes with this knowledge is the CNAIN, Abejas y Mexico Apoidea. And this is an old project into the 90 years where this bee knowledge has been started to record. And this data is actually public into the GBIF database. And this is, as we can see, this knowledge is extended in the north, the center, and the south. Other projects as the Yellow Tooth, computerization of the bee collections from the UNAM. This is the UNAM collection called Alfonso L. Herrera. This collection has some bees from these parts of the center and the south of Mexico. There's not a rich knowledge into the north parts. Another parts like bee biodiversity from the El Triunfo Reserve in Chiapas, or the insect fauna from Campeche State. They are thesis projects, and they are really public into the GBIF database, but this is not a complete knowledge of this bee biodiversity. And other ones like the COSUR database, some records are public into the GBIF database, and this is Science Center to the south of Mexico. This is another classification about the bee records into the US collections, showing only one collection, the Kansas collection. As we can see, this is extended all around the country. But another collection from the US border states, I don't know, some insect collections of Texas, California, Arizona. They are this bee knowledge, and another ones have only a reduced knowledge. This is the iNaturalist records, but this map is really important into the now of this bee biodiversity. But some of them are only recorded from, this is not well recorded. And this knowledge has only importance into the citizen science projects, and some record are really important. because some part of these records are from Apis mellifera, or they are only into family or genus category, but they are not well identified. And well, before to end, I want to show you a little piece of this biodiversity from Mexico. You as part of the US or Canadian parks, you will know this genus. For example, Agapostemon, Antophora, Melisodes, Heromelecta, Osmia, Perdita, Megaki, Genoglossa. They are Nearctic species, Nearctic genus, sorry. They are well extended into the Americas, into North America. And they have a Nearctic origin. They come from the north to the south to live in Mexico, and we can see in some parts from the country. On the other hand, this is a Mesoamerican biodiversity. Some kind of bees that we can find into the Mesoamerican parts from Mexico. For example, the genus Mexalictus, Paravapostemon, some endemic species of Euphrasia, like Euphrasia mckeneri, some endemic Antidium, like Antidium kerri, Aztecantidium, Paravapostemon Aztecantidium. I said before, they are the only two endemic genus from Mexico. Another genus like Eulocompria, Macrotera is Nearctic, but this genus can be well found in Mexico. And Euglossa, this is a neotropical genus, but we can find it well spread in Mexico. Also, we have records of these species in Florida and some parts of the north of Mexico, Sonora, Baja California. They are the principal states where we can find this bee, but in the south is the part where we can find the principal bee biodiversity of the Euglossa genus. In the neotropical, we can find some genus as Megalopta, Leocorinura, Tigader, Chilicola, Epicaris, Euglossa again, Eulema, and Ericosidini tribe as Mesocheira, Mesoplia. And they have a neotropical origin, and they come from the south to the north and to spread in Mexico. We can find a real great richness of these bees in Mexico. But well, as part of conclusion, we have still lots of work to do. Well, in 2020, in 2020, Ort and collaborators made this map showing the showing the richness around the world of the bee species. And as we can see into the North America is the part where these bee richness are well recorded. So in Chile and Europa are the principal countries where we can find this bee richness. As we know, the principal part of the world where we can find some great bee richness is in down of the tropics, as we can see in the far north, United States, Mexico, Europa, China, in this part, Chile, South Africa, Australia, are the principal countries where we can find this bee biodiversity. In the case of America, we know that this region is the most richest region where we can find this bee biodiversity. But we need to extend this type of assessments in Mexico. As we know, in the United States is a country with the more bee biodiversity or the more bee knowledge in the world. You have more than 3,000 species, as I know, and this is only, and in Mexico we have only the 3rd part. But this is why, because we need to fill some knowledge gaps. For example, this is the principal part where the bee biodiversity has been recorded, but we don't know how many bee species are into these gaps, into these parts. Sorry, the orange dots is a part where we know how many bee species, but the blue circles is the gaps that we need to fill. And we don't know how many bee species are in this part. For example, we need to put more attention into the conservation areas. For example, in Mexico, we have a region called AMP, natural protected areas, where this bee knowledge has been well recorded. For example, there's the Oaxaca Sierra, Tehuacan-Cuitlán Reserve, Pinacate Reserve, Chihuahuan Desert, Oaxaca Sierra, where these knowledge are well established, well recorded. But in other parts, we don't know how many bee species are inside. And well, in part of conclusion is Michael and Radcliffe cite that the north of Mexico may have the highest bee biodiversity in the world. And that means that we need to fill these gaps of the north part, also into the center. But we need to fill these gaps to know how many, or well, what's the real bee biodiversity from Mexico. And well, I thank to several people that have been contributed into my project and supports me in everything. My family, my friends, some friends that I love so much because they have supported since I am starting with this project. The people that follows my project, my teachers, and also I thank a lot to the ITXB team for this chance to present this project and to be a part of this project. Well, thanks for your attention. This is all. I hope you may understand me. And if you have any question, please tell it.
Thank you. That was great. I'll open up. God, where is the chat? There is the chat. So are there any questions? No questions so far. Just wonderful, wonderful, great talk. Great talk.
Thank you. Thank you. I stop to share, or you need to ask me?
We have a question, Neil. Do you want to read it out loud?
So why do you think that the diversity of bees is less in the tropics, in the neotropics? And so this is from Christian Mendez from Guatemala, which I think.
Sorry. Hey everyone, why do you think there's? This is because into the neotropics, there's not some taxonomies or people interested into the knowledge of this bee biodiversity. But for example, in other countries of the South, like Chile or Argentina or Brazil, there's some people interested into this knowledge. For example, I don't remember, I guess Laura Spacker is working with Abejas Nativas de Chile, naturalist project, that they are working into this knowledge, and they are doing a good job into this recording of these species. The last years, they have described some new bee species from the Heromelicinae subfamily, and they are working so good with this knowledge. For example, in Guatemala and Central America, there's not some taxonomies interested into this knowledge.
And I would just add that the bees are unusual for insects because they do show what's called a mid-latitude peak. And in the Orr et al. Paper in 2020, they described that peak in diversity probably, right now, probably at the border between Mexico and the United States. But there's a number of publications that have documented this peak in diversity. And other people like Lawrence, Bob, you can chime in. You probably know better than the rest of it is. But
hey guys.
Hello?
Yeah, this is Nacheli. Sorry to interrupt. There are other really great questions on the chat. So,
yeah, okay. I will get,
prioritize them because no, I mean, this is great, but I think I got it. I got the answer. Let's move on. Those questions,
Shelley,
they're really great questions.
Thanks. Let me finish. And it's thought that they're aridity because most of them are soil nesters, and so that there's greater larval survivorship. Okay, so next question.
What's your favorite genus of bees? I don't have a favorite genus, but I love the Erythrocidini tribe and the orchid bees and some alictid species. For example, the Nagapostemon, Alictus, and some from the alictid family. Well.
And the one above that is Lawrence Packer asks, are there plans to fill in those gaps? And that's probably the big question, right? Plans to go document bee diversity in parts of Mexico. Michelle, do you want to say it in Spanish?
Yes, please, Shelly.
I'm sorry, what?
Do you want to say that question in Spanish? Lawrence Packer is asking, are there plans to fill in those gaps where we have very little data in bees? Would like, actually, so let me qualify this. So these are digitized records. I think Mexico is definitely farther ahead than the US or Canada in terms of digitizing their bee specimens, but there still is probably, my guess, 500,000 bee specimens in Mexican collections that have not been digitized. But my guess is even if we did digitize all of those, there would still be the gaps.
Yeah, and I think that's why I was getting a little bit overexcited with the questions when they started asking about bilateral research agreements or priorities, you know, how to identify priorities in research. And I think, you know, I am not very knowledgeable. I think Gerardo knows much more about what's going on in Mexico right now. I mean, I could.
Can you tell me it in Spanish, please?
Están platicando, la conversación se enfoca ahorita en los planes para llenar esos vacíos en información, en esas áreas. Entonces me preguntan que si yo sé o si sabemos de algo. Por eso las preguntas se ponen muy interesantes, porque se habla de potencial colaboración, identificación de prioridades, son las preguntas en el chat. Y yo decía que tú eres el experto aquí, que tú nos puedes informar más de los planes en términos de investigación en México. Adelante, Gerardo.
Okay, here in Mexico, actually, we don't have a project about this bee knowledge. For example, there's some independent projects about this bee knowledge. For example, as I said before, Leonela Weiss, she's working with the Perdita genus into the revision of this genus. On the other hand, Natalia Flores, she's working with the Serratina genus, and she's doing a revision of some subgenus of this group. And well, in this case, the digitation project, there's not a complete one. But we can start with one. Only we need to have some support of some specialists to start working with this totally knowledge of Mexico.
Yeah, perdón, Gerardo. También, si podrías enfocar tu respuesta en los esfuerzos en la digitización de los especímenes. ¿Puedes decir un poquito más sobre eso o ya es todo lo que tienes que decir?
Well, into the digitation. We don't know. First, we need to know how many bee species are on our country. The identity of the recorder bee in the collections. We need to review the species of every specimen that we have here. For example, as we see before, the genus Andrena, Gapostemon, Nomada. There's not a real revision of these species, and we need to start with this. For start know how many bee species of this genus, or how many species are into a collection, and we need to start with this to know the identity of these bees, and then to follow with field work, or to start with the knowledge, total knowledge of some parts. For example, the AMP or another of the zones where there's a gaps into the knowledge. Ashley?
Yeah, sí, genial. ¿Quieres que te lea las preguntas del chat?
Sorry, yes, I can find it. Can I stop share?
Oh yeah, stop sharing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sorry. No.
Neil, do you want to pick and choose questions? There are really great questions on the chat. So.
I lost track. So
yeah. Well, there were some the questions about the bilateral research priorities. Mario, hola, espero que seas Mario. Te conozco, creo. Mario was asking about bee examples of species that interact, like interactions, maybe specialization with plant species, dormancy in desert bees.
Oh, for example, of economical importance, these specialist bees are the peponapis, the squash bees. They are generalists with the squash plants, and only we can find these bees into this kind of plants, the Cucurbita genus. And another example, the bombus are specialists into the pollination of Solanaceae family. And they are important also into the economical part of this sorry, this part of the economics. For example, some perdita species are important into the pollination of bee plants. Some plants of the Euphorbiaceae or the Cactaceae of the cacti family, they are pollinated by the perdita genus. And so into the Cactaceae family, there are some genus like, I don't remember, it's a Megachilid family. Liturgus and Liturgopsis are cacti pollinators, and they are specialists into this kind of plants. Well, this is important. Another kind of bees are the Euglossini. They are important orchid pollinators from the Stanopine and the Lycastine subtribes, sorry. They are important into this pollination. Another kind of bee can do it like an Euglossine can do.
We're running out of time. There were some questions about dormancy. And questions about desert regions. Questions about recordings.
Well, yes. And so that I answered the one on recording. So it'll be turned into a YouTube recording, and then we'll share it with iDigBio. It'll be posted on the iDigBees Twitter. And a few other places. So the question on bilateral research agreements, that's probably beyond our capacity to really answer that in this talk, but that's in part what I'm doing is to try to initiate something. And I'm really looking at more less bilateral and more helping just people in Mexico, document their bee biodiversity. And then there was another one on the work that Jack Neff has done in Texas, where he's recorded 1,100 species. And so he's an example of somebody that has an amazing collection and an amazing amount of knowledge. It's just not public yet. And so that's one thing that I'm really trying to promote. So for example, Bob Minkley, who's at this meeting, has made all 70,000 records of his bee data publicly available. And it's just absolutely wonderful to get that. So did I miss any other, there were some comments about, yes, it's understandable that Northern Mexico would have such great biodiversity. Gerardo, can you type into the chat your contact info?
Yeah, I am doing it.
And
yeah, Neil, just as kind of like, you know, moving the discussion with how to move these forward and identifying priorities. And I think Gerardo's view is that we need to start with the taxonomy and systematics. That's what I got from his answer. But I would pose that maybe digitize, I cannot say that word. You know, turning all of these records, making a digital version of them would be better, because then once you put it online, then you can have experts, you know, like as long as the, you know, images are high quality, which, you know, and, you know, it's not an easy task, because even though it's like, well, Gerardo's point is that there are not a lot of specimens, there are not a lot of records, right. But it's going to be a huge endeavor, which will require close collaborations between institutions. UNAM, UNAM is you know, like CONABIO is you know, like another one. So these two, the UNAM, the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de Mexico, everybody knows the university, main university in Latin America. And then CONABIO is a commission in Mexico that studies biodiversity. So, and I think I'm pretty sure it's part of the federal government.
Yeah.
Just to give some context for people that might not know.
That's right. And so I don't, and I don't think Gerardo does as well, really have a well-defined path moving forward. But it can take several forms, but I really regard this as sort of the initiation of making a concerted effort to increase collections, increase taxonomy activity, and part of that is digitization. And so we can do all of those at once. And so CONABIO did an amazing job, 10 years ago, by digitizing, I think, including bees, over 3 million records. And since then, there just I haven't seen a lot of activity, at least on GBIF. And so what I'm hoping is that after this, we can get together various people from South of Mexico, Mexico, and North of Mexico to see what we can do. And one of the things that we're doing in the US is starting to develop just maps of states showing the number of species per state. So to actually have a target that we can trying to achieve. There are people like John Asher who really wants to increase the ability for iNaturalists and citizen science efforts. And he's particularly interested in helping Mexico. So I don't know what the exact trajectory is, but I know that there's scores of people that can play a really important role taking us to the next step. Gerardo, do you agree? Gerardo is reading my message, trying to keep up.
Mostly raise the hand.
Sí, pero Neil pide tu opinión. ¿Qué opinas? Sí, sí, creo que ya no hay subtítulos, pero Neil pide tu opinión de lo que comentó.
Se me desactivaron ahorita un momento y estoy yo tratando de activar.
Okay. Gerardo is asking me why I raised my hand, and I'm asking him if he wants to address your question, Neil. So Gerardo, ¿quieres comentar sobre lo que dijo Neil?
Es que no pude leerlo. Perdón.
Escuchar.
Vas a escucharlo.
Okay, so he lost audio. It's 10 a.m. One of the things that I was going to say, just to re-emphasize, and it's preaching to the choir here, but this should be a really huge priority in terms of research and in terms of economical impact, not only for biodiversity, but yeah. Anyways, so great funding potential too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good place to leave it because we are at the hour. And so, like I said, we'll do another recording in Spanish and we'll share both of those recordings and maybe address some of these questions in the second recording as well that we didn't get to. So with that, I am going to